Hello, good evening, everybody. And okay, I'll just wait for a few people to join in. I think people will slowly join in. So I'll just very quickly brief you what I'm doing. My name is Sharmistha Chatterjee, and I'm doing this mini series called "Women of the Subcontinent." It's all about women who follow their dreams, and they pursue their life in their chosen art form, and who are who've inspired me from around the subcontinent. And today we have a very, very special guest, and she's my dear friend, and she's already here. Annette Philip. I have already posted a lot about her in the bio. And guys, without wasting much time, I'll just call her, and let's call her. How do I go live with? Yeah. We just have to wait for a few seconds for her to join in. And I can see a lot of you. Uh, Hi!
Hi.
My God! It's been, Annette, I was thinking, oh, you've left. I don't know how she just kind of locked out. I think things of the internet, and I don't know what happens. So we'll wait for her to join in again. However, so I was talking about, I was just briefing you about Annette. I have known her since a very, very long time, and it's almost 10 years. I'm going to talk to her about this when she joins in again. And yes, she's here. Okay, just waiting for her to join in again. Sorry, there's some technological problem maybe. Hi.
Hi. Oh my God. I don't know what
Hi.
happened. It just froze.
Yes, yes,
And
yes. Uh,
I'm so happy to see
I'm
you.
so happy to see you, my God. And I was just thinking in the afternoon that it's actually 10 years this year
Oh my
that
God.
we met.
Right.
The first time we met was in Switzerland, and that was in 2010. And this
Wow.
is
I can't even, it's not dawning on me that it's been that
yeah,
long.
it's
Yeah.
been that long, and probably
Yeah.
because we kind of keep seeing each other, and I've followed your amazing journey, and
And me,
all that
yours.
you're doing. Thank you. But you are. I want to tell this in front of everybody that you are one of those women who inspire me so much. I mean,
Oh.
so much by. I mean, the kind of thinking that you have. This very interesting way of creating a community, maybe of
Mm.
positive thinkers or musicians or singers. This is something I don't know. Maybe this is a gift that you have. You do it very naturally, and
Oh.
there's so much positivity. I mean, other than all your accomplishments, this is a very this is this is one thing I think we need to learn from, and the world really needs that kind of a mindset uh,
Oh.
to kind of grow as a community of positive thinkers, and
Mm.
kind of helping each other grow. So yes,
So sweet. Yeah.
I have been following your keeping it light, yes, every day.
Yay! Yeah.
Something to take
We
away from something little to take away from every day. So
Thank
tell me,
you.
how have you been coping up with this whole lockdown process?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this series. I've got a chance to check a few of
It's my honor,
them,
it's my
and
pleasure. Yeah.
and for anyone who doesn't know Sharmisha, she is one of the most incredible singers I've ever heard, and your control and your ada and your just the
Thank you.
intricacy with which you do things effortlessly is always something that inspires me. And yeah, I remember when we first met in Switzerland, and I was just like, "Ah, who is this?" And I mean, so first of all, just thank you, thank you, thank you. Such an honor. And yes, about lockdown, I think anyone online is part of the minority that is actually doing better than most others. The fact that we have internet and we have a way to keep in touch with
Yeah,
people, and we have, most of us have food. We're not worried about where we're going to sleep. I think a lot of us are actually doing better than the majority of people.
absolutely.
I would say, even in India, I mean, there's so many people struggling, and so on days that I have it bad, or or I'm irritated, I allow my irritation or frustration if I have some, but I also do try to think of how much better I have it, and so yeah, kind of it helps to boost your
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah, your state
I
of
think
mind in that moment.
this has been quite. I mean, this is a time where, in fact, I got aware of so many things. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and especially the things that I should be grateful of, uh, and the privileges that I enjoy. Rightfully,
Right,
like you said,
right, right, right. Yeah.
and although we keep complaining that I don't have this, I don't have that, and this is wrong with me. I mean, there's so
Mm-hmm.
much more wrong with so many things that you
Yeah,
need to be first grateful for the little things that you have already, and then
totally.
work towards probably, if not physically, then uplifting a little bit, maybe in the thought process or something, or just inspiring each other, maybe
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah,
and
yeah, totally.
especially when I decided to do this, I was thinking of especially the subcontinent, and how we are the privileged lot,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah,
called, but
exactly.
there are a lot of them who go through a lot of suppression and all, and I am I can see that there would be a recession happening, maybe because of the economic condition that's around. So it's very important for women also to actually address a little bit, because
Mm-hmm.
mentally, with so much of I mean, it may sound a little negative, but this is reality. There are domestic violence happening, I
Yeah,
mean, with the lockdown and everything, but are we talking about it? How many women to women discussion is happening? At least if we kind of can initiate a dialogue. And I
totally.
think the best thing that we have is music, so we
Mm-hmm.
can instantly connect. And but we've all had our respective flights, and you know and however, this is meant to be a positive thing, and I wanted to people to know about the amazing journey that you've had. So let's get back to that quickly. And
Sure. Mm.
so, Annette, tell me about your childhood, and how you picked up music, and how was it encouraged in your family, and how did this begin? This whole thing begin?
Well, I think my parents, while they're not musicians, they always loved music, and so there was music played in the house, and I used to love to sing. And my grandmother said, when I was not even a year old, I mean, just a newly born baby back from the, maternity ward, I would I would cry really loudly at sometimes, 2 or 3 a.m. And strangely enough, I think she had some instinct. And
Oh,
she used to say, "Oh, she's just practicing." And I loved that. I didn't know that, of
that's
course.
so
I mean,
sweet.
yeah,
Okay.
my parents, my mom especially would tell me that my maternal grandmother would say, "Oh, she's just practicing." So I guess that was there. And it's a story I've mentioned before. We moved to Singapore when I
Yeah.
was around 3 years old, and when I was maybe 4 or 4.5. We used to get homework, little assignments and whatnot. And after doing my homework, my mother at around tea time would allow me to watch some cartoons. And she would be changing the channel using the remote. And I would always insist, before we got to the cartoons, there was this one program that would just, excite me, enthrall me. And I would insist, Nene, we have to watch this particular one. And my mother just couldn't understand what was the big fascination. Turned out it was actually Luciano Pavarotti, who's a very famous opera singer. And my mother was, I think, kind of surprised because we didn't really know much about opera music, but uh, it was just something that fascinated me about this man, and he was giving master classes. But more than him, I think I was very attracted to the piano because he had an accompanist. And so I would walk around, like trying to pretend I'm playing piano. And again, I really want to thank my parents because they didn't have any experience about piano and about musical pedagogy. But they noticed that there was this innate interest. And so they did some research and allowed me to start taking piano lessons. And I really think that that was the beginning of it. And Mom and I used to take classes at back to back in the piano, whatever, little school. And I would practice, and then my mother would sit to practice. And whenever Mama used to practice, I used to go and sit and trouble her or,
That is
play my own piece.
amazing. That is
So naughty.
amazing.
No, I was so naughty. So she stopped practicing, poor thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really funny. And I think I'm really glad that they saw that and just gave it a chance despite not knowing much about it. And yeah, then it's just been one after the other. But I think the pivotal thing was realizing that practicing or making music makes me incredibly happy. And at a very young age, I understood that this is it. This needs to happen in some shape or form always, because if not, I will probably wilt. I won't survive. So
Lot of
that's,
our friends are joining in. We have
yeah,
Nirmika
I
here.
see Nirvika
Yeah.
and Anna's
Thanks,
here. Oh
Nirmika.
my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lot of our
Yeah. And
friends. And
Shine.
Nirmika was there in the previous episode,
Yeah, I
session.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Annette, after I know that it's very so you something that you pointed out. It's very interesting and encouraging to know that how parents, although not really directly who are not directly involved with music, but still they spotted that spark in you and they encouraged you wholeheartedly.
Mm.
To for you to take it up and go for it. That's extremely encouraging. I think uh, kids who want to take up music, I mean, this has to happen at home. I mean, there has to be some kind of an inspiration. And I know this because even my dad was like, my mom didn't know anything about music, but
Yeah.
she made me practice. Yeah. So if my teacher told me that, you have to do this tan, you set off the 10 tans like 100 times, she would make sure that I sit every morning and every evening and I do it like, 10 times. And 10 into 10, 100, otherwise you're not going to school. So I think that
Yes.
discipline, those things are very important for the formative years in music for those of us who have been fortunate to receive the training and have that kind of an environment. So uh, then you came to Delhi. When was that? When did you come to Delhi from Singapore?
When I was around 11 years old. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
when you were
Yeah.
11. And
Yeah.
after that, and your schooling and college has been in Delhi primarily, like the academics
Yeah,
part.
I actually went to the same school my mother went to, which is
Oh,
Carmel in New Delhi, in the Janikuri area, for anyone who's from Delhi who's joining us. And yeah, and then ultimately, actually, there is where my music teacher there again played a really pivotal role, because I had become the piano girl. And I was always, even in terms of my own practice, I was primarily playing piano. I wasn't singing. And around maybe sixth or seventh standard, we were practicing in our school. We did a lot of music, both Western and Indian. And he heard me talking to somebody else and, saying, oh, I think that harmony is actually this. And he said, wait, who sang that? Was that you? Can you come to the mic? Can you sing it? And I said, no, I'm the piano girl. So, don't ask me to sing. And then he said, no, actually go for it. Can you give this a shot? And that was a moment of realization that it wasn't just a thing that I was doing at home besides piano, which was my main thing. I realized, something else. And again, it was someone else pointing it out to me and me being actually a little bit resistant to it. And I can't imagine not, singing. And I think from that age, around 12-ish, was when the rediscovery of my voice and therefore almost attachment of an identity to my voice happened, which is a good and a bad thing, I think, because many years later, after college, I went to LSR. After that, when I formed this group called Artists Unlimited, which is
I
a
was
whole
coming to
different,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's a whole different story. But I had a vocal injury, and it's the first time that that sense of identity with the voice being, who am I? I am my voice. That was a very interesting phase where that was challenged. And because of the vocal injury, I almost thought, oh, what if I'm never able to sing again? If I'm never able to sing again, who am I? I don't even know who I am without this thing that I connect with. And that's such an, it's hard. It's a
Of course.
struggle,
Of course.
so I don't know what made me think of that, but I
So
did.
how
So
did you? It's a very interesting story because,
yeah.
Annette, I have my entire. Whenever I think of you, I
Mm.
remember, I the first song I heard you sing was "Joyful, Joyful," somewhere.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was the first time I thought. I mean, she is incredible. I mean,
Oh.
I didn't know about your piano, but I mean, this was many years back, and I had heard that track, and it blew my mind. And I thought that skill is definitely there, but there was some kind of a very, very intrinsic, like a sincerity in your notes and the way you sang, and uh, it zapped me then, when I
So
heard you.
sweet. Mm.
So when I hear of this story, which I did not know, that you had a vocal injury and you kind of, so it intrigues me to
Mm.
learn more about it, and that how could you come out of it, and then you know
Yeah. Well, imagine that it's, like I said, it's my identity at that time. First of all, I was in denial, I think, for a very long time. And I was, at the same time, if it's something that you do every day, like let's say you're a runner, and you run every day and suddenly you have an injury, you can't be in denial because you literally cannot do the thing that gives you life, And so denial, fear, and then anxiety and absolute, I mean, I was so demoralized and disheartened. And I was also very afraid,
hmm.
very afraid, so much so that I did not seek therapy for my voice, vocal therapy.
Oh,
I did not see a doctor for years. And I'm
oh,
talking, 7, 8 years, because I was so afraid that I didn't even want to know what was wrong. I mean, I was in that place, which now seeing it, I always tell my students at Berklee and otherwise, I tell them, as soon as you feel something is wrong, just like you would if your ankle was feeling funny, go get it checked out. However, I think for some reason, I needed to go through it my way. I needed to struggle my way. And I needed to come to terms with the newest, most important lesson that I am not my voice, that my identity is so much
beyond.
more beyond that gift. because somewhere along the line, I think I had everything weighing on that one aspect of my life. And having the prospect of imagining it being lost, or in that sense, I was also angry, at some point. I mean, I can write a book on just the reaction and the different phases of reaction to it feeling like it was being taken away from me or something like that, and also my own, therefore, perception about teaching, because the injury happened while I was teaching, because I think I was overusing my voice. And really, it was it was such a confidence roller coaster, and all sorts of things. So ultimately what happened is I kind of retrained my voice in a very jugaad fashion. And what I mean by that is, um, now after many years of studying, and also studying vocal anatomy and studying vocal injuries and other case studies, and also practicing and having a vocal therapist, I've learned very specific things. Okay, it was a very common thing that happened, and there's a certain amount of your range that kind of disappears. You can usually sing below that range and very high, and there are certain things which then become very difficult, which you'd never thought about before, but now are extremely hit or miss. Like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. It's like, think of walking, and sometimes your left leg doesn't work. It just doesn't. So it's kind of like that for a singer. If you try to sing a note and it just doesn't come out, it's just air. It's the most frightening, awful thing to go through. So this jugaad fix happened, and I learned such a different shade of my voice, and I kind of discovered all the other things that my voice could do due to this injury, because I was walking very much around the issue. And when you walk around the issue, you also see things differently. You hear things differently. You create things differently. You use your instrument, whatever's left of it, in a completely different fashion. And that was actually great, because I think I realized how much depth and texture and, also new musical choices I had to make, because something wasn't easy anymore. And it's almost like you've forgotten how to say the word interesting. And so then you start thinking, okay, what are the other ways I can describe this thing other than interesting? It is, it sparks curiosity, or it fascinates me, or it is so colorful, or it seems like a spicy element, or it's such a interesting way. Oh, see, I used interesting, but it forces you into a different
Maybe you
creative
wouldn't
headspace.
have discovered the other areas if this
Yeah,
had not happened. So
exactly.
maybe it was something positive. Maybe you were meant for much more than you thought at that point of time. And this
Right,
was maybe
I
now
think so.
what we thought as something which is maybe a negative thing turned out to be something which actually uh, helped you to rediscover yourself in different ways and
Mm-hmm.
become more relevant. I mean, so that's a very interesting story. And yeah, this happened when you were when you started teaching in Berklee.
This happened. No, 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 no. This happened actually. I had started Berklee in 2006. I came back and we were releasing our first album with Artists Unlimited. So I was in
Oh,
Delhi and I
okay.
was doing a rehearsal in Delhi. I remember I taught, it was a gospel song. So I taught the bass part, then I taught the tenor part, I taught the alto and the mezzo. When I got to the soprano part, uh, suddenly I couldn't sing those notes anymore. And I kind of
My
like,
God.
I
Oh my God.
coughed and I drank water, and then, and I just couldn't figure it out, because 8 minute it was there and the second minute it wasn't, and that it's not like, oh, okay, I can feel that I'm having a sore throat, or I can feel that a cough or a cold is coming, it was like a switch, on off button,
Suddenly,
and yeah, I mean, now looking back now with pedagogical knowledge, I know that, okay, it was basically uh, edema because of overuse. You get swelling on your vocal folds, and often what happens is air is not passing through your vocal folds in a consistent way, and therefore, you have issues with um, usually a middle or mid to high part of your range, which disappears. But I don't want to get technical right now.
yeah.
The primary thing, it was like bam, it was gone. And what do you do? And we were practicing for a tour. We were doing a 3-city tour with 48 musicians, and it was not. It was the wrong time to have an injury. It's like, what the heck is going on? Not now, not ever, but of course not now. So
Yeah, I think life puts us in a situation, I mean, every time where we just have to adapt to it and probably,
yeah,
apply
and
our.
I wanted to share one thing. So that means it was in the middle of my Berklee journey. So with the injury, I come back to Berklee, and I'm a different singer. I'm a totally different singer. I don't know who I am anymore, and yeah, it's been crazy. And I will say, only maybe last year, so it's 2020 now, so it's 13 years since that injury. There are still days that some of those old issues still crop up, and it really reminds me, probably it's a great ego killer. It reminds you're not your voice, you're many more things than that.
Hmm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's
No,
it's odd.
great. It's a great story. It's a great story of inspiration, and it's a great story of how we must keep the ego in check, because anything
Hmm.
can
Happen
disappear
anytime.
anytime.
Yeah, yeah,
Anything can, just like fame, name, your voice, everything, and
yeah,
we
yeah,
are going to leave the world after all. I mean, at
yeah,
one point of time. So,
yeah,
as long as we have whatever we have, we try to make the best use of it, and it's really
yeah.
a very inspiring story. A lot of your admirers are here.
I see
Shamsa.
Shine and Palak
Yes, a
and
lot of your fans
Ajit,
are
and
here.
so sweet. Yeah, so
Yeah.
happy that.
So, Annette, definitely,
Mm,
a lot of people want to know about Artist Unlimited and how did that happen, and the story.
yeah. Thank you all for asking about it. So something about me is, I love. I feel I'm a little bit of a paradox because I am a bona fide loner. I can spend, 10 days, 12 days, 20 days without talking to anybody and not feeling lonely. So I love being alone. I love quiet time. I love solitude. At the same time, I love people, and I'm a big dream kind of girl. I love creating all sorts of projects that invite and allow for many different people to collaborate. And it's very exciting for me. It's very fun for me. And it feels like the natural way to make things happen, And I don't think I realized that about myself. It was just go
Yeah.
and do things. And so I was very active in my LSR, Western music, Indian music societies. As anyone from India, that you have all these clubs and organizations within the colleges or within your schools. And same thing was happening in Kamal in high school and junior, middle school, with what we called the hum group. And we would go and meet a lot of other different musicians, primarily at competitions. And our school, and as well as college, was somehow very lucky. We always had mentors, or we always had this mindset that, music is abundant and talent is abundant, and it's such a beautiful thing. And the most amazing thing is to learn from each other and celebrate each other. And,
Okay.
this question of hostility, this question of feeling jealous or envious of somebody else just because they can sing higher than you or play
Right.
faster than you. It's not a thing.
So
At least
true.
in our school,
Yeah.
it was not. And so we would go to these competitions so excited. And we would see some other school drummer and say, "Oh my God, dude, you were amazing." And a lot of times people would kind of be a little taken aback and like, "Yeah, I'm your competition. Why are you talking to me?" And so that was something that struck me as very odd and also very alien to being a creative person. And then, while college was happening, there were a couple of incidents which I am not at liberty to discuss, but suffice it to say that they really shocked us and really reminded us that the community of creative people, of like-minded people, and therefore you can extrapolate this and talk about any area of life. A community of like-minded people is so important because you support each other. Oftentimes in our family, everyone in our family doesn't believe the same things or isn't even interested in the same things. And so sometimes you are misunderstood. You are not seen, you're not heard, you are not encouraged because simply not because someone's trying to be mean to you, but it's just not part of their reality.
Right.
And not all parents are open enough to allow or support their children or their relatives in endeavors that are foreign to them. And the difference with our music community in LSR was that no matter who was upset or sad or sick or had a loss in their family or was suffering from anything from depression to self-doubt to guilt to shame, whatever, somehow we were there for each other. And especially
Amazing.
through, as I mentioned, I can't talk about the situation, but something really, really shocking. The few of us together spent so much time, and that was, I think, the second moment of kind of aha, like, okay, we should, creative things are so good. Let's not be hostile. And secondly, let's do things together. And that was one of the main inspirations for creating the group. So right after I graduated college, a few of us were sitting around in my house, we were having chai, and you know, we were discussing this very point. Can there be a place to make music which is non-competitive, non-hostile, where you're also really trying to make high quality art, which exposes not only other musicians to different types of music, but also exposes an audience to music that they may not even know they like because they've never been exposed to it.
True.
And we did a social experiment. We called every musician that we felt had interest and integrity, those two things. And we just called them and said, okay, can you meet us? We have a date, July 23rd. We just want to try something. We want to try to make a group of a lot of singers specifically. And it was a very rainy day in July. I asked my high school, I asked Kamal, can I have a room? I'm trying a social experiment. They were like, go ahead. And it was raining cats and dogs. 60 people showed up.
Wow.
And we had actually, interestingly enough, decided that Joyful Joyful was going to be the first song
Oh,
that we were going to learn. Yeah. So it's so
oh,
interesting you talked about it. So I had
right.
trained two or three people, some to learn the soprano part, to teach the soprano part, same with alto, tenor, and I was teaching the bass part. And after about an hour and a half, all of us came together and we tried the first part of the song. And I remember we tried it and we just looked around at each other. What just happened? This is the coolest thing ever. It just kind of gave us goosebumps. And we realized, all right, that's it. This has to be a thing. And we ended up meeting for about 2 months every day from, let's say, 5 to 10 or 6 to 10. And we were learning sometimes a song a day. And when I say a song a day, I'm talking 4-part, 5-part harmony,
Wow.
fully learned. And we, by that time, I was a full-time voiceover and jingle and documentary. I was a recording artist. So any money that I was having, I was trying to put into this endeavor. We booked an auditorium in Delhi.
Right.
We friends in the group designed a new logo. And we thought, okay, we have to give it a name. So we said, okay, 60 people now, who knows how many people we'll have? Let's call it unlimited, something unlimited. And then we said, okay, artists, but with an E because, we are young and cool. So,
That is
so
so
Artists
amazing.
Unlimited. Yeah. And so that's where it grew from. And I think that's
And it's so
important.
interesting that in my experience and in my this thing, I've come across so many people, so many young singers and upcoming singers in Mumbai from Delhi, or musicians who have been a part of
Right.
Artist Unlimited, and they have a big smile on their face whenever. You pop up in the conversation, and
Oh,
it just feels that there's so much joy, and there's so much, the thing you mentioned. It's very important, that non-competitiveness,
yeah,
that a community singing thing without the sense of competition, who's doing better or who's doing worse, or
right.
all those negative emotions that come from there,
Yeah,
which probably, which we eventually have to face in the world. There's no escaping. But if we are groomed to something, if we can experience something like that, where we can just sing our hearts out and learn, and there's no judgment, and what a beautiful thing you came up with. And congratulations. And it's still alive. It's alive in people's hearts, and it's still being talked about. You've moved to Boston many years back, and it's still, there's something you've created for the keeps. So kudos to
yeah.
you
Well,
on that.
thank you.
Yeah.
I think, you have to have the right people. I think in any endeavor of yours, the intention has to be pure and the intention has to be strong. And then I think we all manifest and attract people who vibe with it, and
Yeah.
ultimately it's about vibe. And there's a distinction with it being non-competitive. It's still high quality. It still has to have a standard. It still
Yes.
has to have integrity. And that's what the integrity is. It's not just our interpersonal relationships, but we're going to work really hard at this. We're going to try to do this the best we can. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to forgive ourselves. We're going to really attempt to do something that's unusual and different, not just for the sake of it being unusual or different, but
Quality
because,
was not compromised.
yeah, yeah, you've got to be tough on yourself, right? For that, and you know that
I
more than
know,
anyone
because
else. You are
I have
such a
when we did,
stickler.
yeah, no, but when we did
So sweet,
we
Shine.
I was part of the choir when you were directing us at in Switzerland, and I knew how much involvement you had with that writing, especially. I was just remembering your compositions today that we got. I think we sang there,
Yeah.
and how much involvement you had with each and every person in the choir. And for me, coming from an Indian classical background, I did not have exposure to harmonies then, because ours
Mm,
is very monophonic in nature.
right.
So the philosophy is completely different. The philosophy is completely like something which is solo and within the self. You get into a meditative zone.
Yeah.
Here you are together with everybody, and you are in that meditative, the same meditative zone.
Yes.
The feeling is so different, but I was so fortunate to
Mm,
experience it, and for the first time with you. So that created a hell lot of difference in the way I actually perceived music in the following years after
wow.
that experience of mine. So I wanted to tell
Yeah.
you that as well.
Oh, that means so much to me. So sweet. And
Thank
we did we I remember you joined us for the Bombay when we did the Levi's Lounge
you.
circle singing thing.
Yes,
And
yes.
that
So
was so special. I mean, again, complete strangers. And this is the power of art, I think, complete strangers who are willing to be vulnerable with each other and just, love each other and just support each other. And,
Wow, it's
yeah,
lovely.
life should be a long circle song.
That is lovely. I don't know. I need a lot. Maybe I need another session also to talk to you in details, because I don't know how much
Oh,
we can cover in this little time. But anyway, quickly touching upon. So after Artists Unlimited, you took that same format in a more global way. How you created the Berklee India ensemble, and you were doing the almost the same thing, that the philosophy behind uh, how you created Artists Unlimited. I think you applied the same philosophy over there, and it turned out to be, I mean, what a success that was.
so sweet. Yeah, well, I think any project you do, the I would say that's probably my life philosophy. So I want to, as a loner, and this is the paradox, as a bona fide loner who doesn't need much human interaction, maybe plants and animals more. Um, if I am going to work with the human race, I
Mm.
want to I want to make sure that we have some commitments, and I'm going to do my best to keep that thread. And it's a thread of working on the self and working with each other. I think that's my that's the philosophy, or that's the life intent or life purpose, I think, to connect
Certainly.
people and just grow and keep making lots of mistakes and trying to do it with as much compassion for ourselves and each other. And it makes everything taste better, sound better, feel better, look better. It really does, and
Yeah.
ultimately it's about connections.
Mm.
Um, if if the people in your group or your company or your family or your choir
Mm.
or your startup business don't know each other, don't have meals together, don't share something about when they're having a great day or a bad day, you're just scratching the surface of human
That's so true.
connection. And when you start having those dinners, when you start remembering or asking for the little details, it it's a different layer, it's a different dimension, much deeper dive of human uh, connection, and I think that probably is, I've said it in many words, but I think that I have to think of a one phrase to call it,
Yeah.
to define it. But I think that's the core of it,
Yeah.
that's the core
And
of it.
it's amazing because I think a lot of human beings are also scared to connect because of how
Mm.
to just avoid save themselves from a lot of negative things. People don't open up.
Talk to me about that. I want to discuss that actually.
So a lot of people, maybe when you go through, I mean, like I was saying, that two three things that I found very interesting in the projects that you've done was, number one, the quality of work that you were putting up, no compromises on that, and each and every aspect of that was like a tick mark, like the look of it, the content of it, the way they were performing. I have seen your students performing, actually, and not just standing and singing. They were enjoying, they were enacting, which was happening much later. Initially, I mean, so I have seen a growth in the performance,
Mm.
but keeping
Mm.
the content intact, the integrity of the content. But after that, when you go out in the competitive world, you again face, what should I say? You look for affirmations on a regular basis, that
But this is
validation,
natural. Yeah, naturally we do.
validations. An
Yeah.
artist's life in a competitive market, in a market.
Mm.
You constantly look for validation, and sometimes, after a certain period of time, you are afraid to connect on a very organic level with another artist.
Mm.
I've seen that happening in over
And
here.
do you think that's because people feel like there is a lack of opportunity and therefore, if they tell their vulnerabilities, they might lose a job or they might not be
Yeah,
called back or
I
okay.
I feel that a lot of times people are see, it has been a so this is a very long conversation. I don't know how long I can continue with it. I'll
Sure.
make it precise. I got a call from a student, not a music student in Pakistan, not my student, because I sing
Hmm.
there with a Pakistani band.
Nikah
So
Hassan Saab, yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so she generally asked me
Hmm.
because there are no teachers. I mean, very few teachers that can teach
Sure.
you in classical music, and the gharana classical teachers that they have. Sometimes they don't want to share all their knowledge to people who are
Hmm.
outside the gharana.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in such circumstances, they feel who should they go to if they want to learn?
Right.
Who would you look up to? I mean,
Right.
so
It's
there are
protected knowledge.
hundreds of information available online, but it might not be suited for your particular
Yeah.
vocals.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
need a one-to-one supervision and understanding of your
Yeah.
range and everything too. So
Totally.
I understood it, and I felt that why would people, after they have achieved so much, be afraid to share? Uh, Maybe
Hmm.
that's because they that survival of the fittest theory has gone deep down in the self.
Hmm.
But
Wait, continue, and then I want to talk about Darwin's
yeah.
survival of the
So,
fittest
so
theory.
probably
Yeah.
probably you want to survive and think of the rest of because there's a lot of plight.
Hmm.
Generally, uh, survival of an artist
Hmm.
in is so there we just see the section of people who are very very famous, right?
Right.
There are
Right.
the other section we might not know they might be working, and there are other sections also who exist, in
Yeah.
some way or the
Yeah.
other. So and but this survival of the fittest and this fear actually
Uh-huh.
exists from the topmost people to to the
To
to the people on the ground level. So I don't
yeah.
know, I mean, this is
So
this is something very very fascinating, but my teacher always told me that whenever you share, you learn yourself. So
correct.
every
Exactly.
opportunity to me, whenever I talk, or now that I'm talking to you, and I am learning so much, and even if I talk to, I learn from my students who I kind of
Totally.
they expose me
Education
to
is a
things
two-way
which I
street.
never knew. Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Education
so
is
I
meant to be a
wonder.
two-way street. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think it's all in the mind.
It
Maybe
is all in the
there has
mind,
to
and
be.
it's also in interpretation. Palak just said, the more you give, the more you get. I couldn't agree more,
So true.
And it's so interesting that you talked about Darwin's survival of the fittest. So recently, in Keeping It Light, we talked about various things, including kindness. And one of the pieces of research I found was that human beings over time have taken this phrase, survival of the fittest, to mean something harsh, to mean
Mm.
that you have to protect, safeguard, control, build a fence around, or look out for yourself if you really want to get ahead, right?
Yeah,
This is how we interpret the word or the phrase survival of the fittest. The interesting thing is Darwin himself studied human sociology and human psychology, and he believed that as a species we are by nature meant to work with each other, and we will survive better if we work as a collective. And
that's
he
so true.
never proposed that people should be selfish and that people should be afraid to give or open up or be vulnerable or help each other. He actually didn't. He just said that over time the people who are stronger will survive, because of ailments and immunity and whatnot, and therefore try to keep your, there's so many ways to interpret that, but actually he never meant it to mean the way that we take it and the way that we interpret it, so it's
Yeah,
such a I think the best phrase is, if you have many, I don't remember the actual quote, but the visual is, if you have many boats in a harbor, you can't, for one boat to rise, all of the boats have to actually rise, because the
exactly,
water, lifts everybody up. The
exactly.
surrounding buoyancy lifts all of us up. But we don't have that mentality, but we
Yeah,
can create that
we don't.
mentality.
In fact, even if you look at
Yeah,
them, I'm digressing from this very topic and quickly touching upon something. We, in a city like Mumbai, which is the financial capital of India, we
yeah,
see a high rise suddenly in the middle of nowhere, and there are slums all around. If we don't bring up those people, there will be theft. I mean, how are we going to be happy, if other people are also not growing? Because that disparity and that division is always going to remain there. So the moment we step out of our homes in our cars, there will be little children who'll come out and ask for money, or maybe come with a flag of India and ask you to buy it. Is that a happy feeling? It's not. Like, I don't know, there has to be something where there has to be a collective growth, and maybe it's a
yeah,
slow process, maybe but this thought has to come. It's not like
yeah.
I grow and I grow and I grow. I have the kind of music that I was doing, since I don't think we have much time, but I'll quickly just say, a lot of
Yeah.
people, especially event. I spoke to a lot of event people, and I was doing a couple of shows when I mean recently, but a lot of people were not buying it because it was not a popular music format. Then
Sure.
somebody, some one of my friends said that, why don't you create your own audience?
Yep.
I mean, maybe they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know how to sell you,
Yeah.
or they don't know. And it's so. So how can we create our audience? Exactly what you are doing. I'm also learning from you, because you're creating a
Mm.
community of like-minded people who will listen to you, and you will feel that empathy, and you will grow. And maybe
Yeah,
some.
and I
Yeah,
totally agree. And it's, and the other thing is that it's not mine, it's ours.
it's ours. So true. That's lovely. Yes,
Yeah.
it's ours. Yes. So Annette, I probably I will need another session with you to talk
Oh.
about another. I mean, the rest of it. There's too many things to ask in so little time, but I would love to
I loved our
listen.
topics. I loved our,
Yes, yes, me too. It was
sharing.
absolutely non-scripted. It's just like it's just coming naturally
Yeah, it's
to me,
organic.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, you are such a beautiful person, and I mean, I know, I mean, so many people already know you're absolutely gorgeous, just mastery. For anyone who doesn't know it, please, please, I urge you. I mean, so many days I just listen to Sharmistha to get peace and to also revel in your uh, really extraordinary gift. You have an extraordinary gift, and I also love this series. It's such an honor to be here, and each
it's
time
my
it's so
honor. It's my
different.
honor. It
Yeah,
is
yeah,
completely, the honor is
yeah.
mine, and I'm so honored to be able to discuss, because I know you think very differently,
Mm.
and I look up to you, and you know the feeling is completely
Mutual.
mutual. So let
Yeah.
I can't leave you without listening to something, you know.
Oh, oh, okay. That took me by surprise.
Yeah.
Um, okay, okay. So let's do it quickly. Are we singing something together, or I mean, with lag, but
I don't know. Just saying, I don't
uh,
know what we can do together, but
uh,
let's just
okay.
start with you singing something.
Okay, okay. Well, there's a beautiful song called Hands. which I actually played a couple of weeks ago in a show, actually a month ago almost. And the lyrics are really, really beautiful. I don't have any instrumentation, but I'll do it quick. Um, so, if I could tell the world just one thing, it would be to take your time and not to worry, 'cause worry is wasteful and useless in times like these. I won't be made useless. I won't be idle in despair. I gather myself around my faith, for light is the darkness most feared. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours. They are my own, and they're not yours. They are my own, and I am never broken.
Lovely. Oh my
Yeah.
God. So much
But it's
love.
true, no?
It
Our hands are our
is.
own. They might be small, but we can do big things with our little
Oh my
hands.
God. Oh my
So,
God.
thank
This is so beautiful. So beautiful. I
you.
was wondering if we can do
Mm.
something together,
Mm.
but I don't know how. Maybe something where we need to know a song to do that, or we can just generally take a spare and
Yeah, you
play
know what I have?
device.
I have my I'll play this and you sing. So I have my
Oh, how lovely.
kalimba. So it's in the key of C, but you
Okay.
can do whatever you want, but it's major. So I'll give you the notes.
Okay.
Can you hear it? Maybe you can't hear it.
Da da. This is
Yeah,
what I.
that's
Da
the
da
so
da
I'll
da 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 na na it sounds like Charukeshi, no? No, not Charukeshi
Mm.
actually. It sounds like
I'm just doing sapasa. If you can hear it.
actually we have a Mikalasan band song in that. I'll just sing two lines
Oh,
quickly.
go for it.
हक दिया मिल सापन यार वे हक दिया मिल सापन यार वे मेरे लूलू चीख पुकार वे मेरे लूलू चीख पुकार वे हक दिया मिल सापद यार वे हक दिया मिल सापद यार वे मेरी जिंदड़ी होई उदास वे मेरा सांवल आस न पास वे मुझे मिले ना चार कहार वे मुझे मिले ना चार कहार वे हक दिया मिल सापद यार वे हक दिया मिल सापद यार वे lovely. Oh my God, I loved it.
It
We
was so
must do
nice.
another session, Annette. This is
Yay.
not enough. We are running out of time, but I am
Sure.
so happy you came to my show, and I'm
I
so
love it.
grateful. I'm so happy, and thank you. Such a
Mwah.
beautiful soul you are, and I wish you all the best for your, upcoming ventures and
Thank you,
keeping it light.
Mama.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
yeah. So
So
okay.
happy. It was so beautiful. We
Yes,
have to
yes,
call each
yes.
other on the phone more and just
Right,
sing with
right.
each
We
other.
must. We
this
must.
is
Yeah.
like zaruri hai.
Okay. So on that
I love
note,
you
I
so much and
love you
thank you.
too. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Love you.
And thank
Okay.
you to everybody, especially all
Yes.
my
Everybody
darling
who's joined
Keeping It
in.
Light family has been here for so
Yes.
long.
Yes.
And
Thank you,
please
everyone.
follow Sharmistha. She's really
Right.
something, she's such a special person. So, yeah. Oh, and which instrument they're asking. So, this is the
Okay, we
kalimba.
are running out of time, so
Yeah.
this I have to put this off
Bye.
because. See
Love you.
you. Bye.
Bye.